trying to enjoy the time, or is it time to move forward already? A lot of people saying, well, why not both? I can enjoy it and still look forward. Now it's a party, as they say. And Chris has a list of the other free agent signings since 2008 and where Malik falls on that list in terms of, I guess, level of importance, skill level.
I don't have that ready, but I do have.
No, I'm just saying we will discuss.
Okay. That. It's like I just have the list ready right now. This is. I had our top men background check this for me to make sure that this is correct. So shout out Frankie and Brendan for at least humoring me and trying to see if this is correct. But this is the list that I came up with of the Kings re-signing since 2008. So these are players who were with the Kings and then decided to re-up for their next contract with the Kings, not necessarily like an Omri Caspi situation where Omri left for a period of time and then came back. Bobby Jackson did a similar thing, and it's till 2008, so Chris Webber's extension and things like that, not involved in this list. Should we go from 2008 up, or should we go from up back?
2008 up.
Okay, we'll go from 2008 up, where the Kings signed Beno Udrith. Many will remember the Beno stint. Beno was really one of the Kings' shining lights in their, 13 to 15 win season, where they eventually got the pick to take Tyreek Evans. And that was a very dark period for the Kings, but Beno was in a weird way a shining light, but also Beno was nothing really fantastic, and I think that was really a sign that the Kings were where they were, honestly. The fact that Beno was such a big deal that they could lock him up. In 2011, Marcus Thornton was re-signed after the Kings had traded for him the season previous from the New Orleans, I think they were the Hornets at the time. So that was Marcus Thornton, who did sign like a 3 or 4 year contract extension with the Kings, didn't end up fulfilling the rest of that contract and was traded before that deal was over. Jason Thompson, the all-time leader in Sacramento Kings games played in the Sacramento era, was re-signed in 2012. In 2013, DeMarcus Cousins re-signed to his extension. In 2014, Isaiah Thomas was signed and traded to the Phoenix Suns. That was when Phoenix tried to do that 3-point guard thing with him, Gordon Dragic, and Eric Bledsoe. That didn't work out. So Isaiah technically re-signed with the Kings, but never actually played his second contract with the Kings. So that was a stint for those keeping track of 2011, 2012, 2013, and technically 2014, all 4 consecutive years of re-signing a player. The Kings then did not re-sign a player until 2019 when Buddy Hield got his contract extension. And if you remember, that was a bit of a shaky situation where we weren't sure if Buddy was going to re-sign, and then the Kings signed him to a pretty big deal, and obviously Buddy didn't end up fulfilling the remainder of that contract either, as he was traded in the middle of that deal. Rashawn Holmes re-signed in 2021, also was somebody who didn't finish out that second contract with the Kings. We know he was traded at last year's draft. Alex Len did technically re-sign with the Kings after having that season 2 years ago where he didn't play until about 8 to 10 games left in the season. He obviously re-signed this past offseason and played with the Kings this season with a really good role. Trey Lyles as well, somebody who spent a season with the Kings and then re-signed last offseason. And that brings us to Malik Monk. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 players have re-signed with this organization since 2008. Not a lot, and I don't think it's a sign of people not liking Sacramento or not wanting to be in Sacramento. To me, this is a sign that the Kings really just – it's not even a sign. It just is evidence that the Kings didn't really do a great job in those thin years of getting players that were frankly worth re-signing to longer extensions. And I think now, you see Alex Len, who was a big contributor this year. You see Trey Lyles, who was a role player, and now Malik Monk, who's, again, another role player. That is massive, massive, massive. And you can also add Domantas Sabonis, I should add to this list, who did re-sign his contract last offseason as well. So I'll have to add that into this as well. So not many players have re-signed with the Kings. And again, it's to me more of a sign that they haven't done a good job of getting talent in the building and then having that talent play well enough for the team that you would want to even re-up with him. So obviously that kind of adds even more weight to how important Malik's re-signing was.
Does it, in a way, look, there'll always be conversations about market sizes and how much money and things like that. But I think at least a little bit, it debunks the idea of this city isn't a good spot or that city isn't a good spot. It just shows to me and illustrates that a winning culture and a winning situation can overcome at least some of those things, right? If somebody really wants to be in LA or really wants to be in a big city, then it probably doesn't matter what a city like Sacramento does, right? Sure. But if you build a winning culture, let's talk about Milwaukee, for example. And I know Damian Lillard was technically traded, but he was okay with being traded to Milwaukee because it's a winning situation. So to me, I think Malik deciding to stay, normally you stay in lesser situations for more money, right? Malik choosing to stay and for a team who, yes, like we said, if Malik doesn't get hurt, maybe they're the 6th seed, maybe they're the 5th seed. They weren't going to be the 1, 2, or 3. So I don't know if people necessarily thought that they would straight up contend this season, but we were trying to figure out what happened after kind of the down year in the West. So for Malik to decide to stay, he believes in the Kings and what they are building. And I think that is just as important, depending on the player, or just as important as the market size, the money, things like that. And a lot of times we get caught up in it, but throughout these years, the Kings weren't good. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter if they were in. I guess the thing is, you don't have as much wiggle room if you are a small market. But when you are good, you still have a chance to re-sign people. LA can stink and try to convince somebody, hey, you can come here and be the king of LA. New York stunk for years, and they were still New York. So I think it just goes to show when you build a winning culture, it doesn't really matter where it is. And let's be honest here, and I know we all have our purple lenses on and Sacramento lenses on, there are still a lot of worse places to be than Sacramento, 100%. Right? Even with the different markets. So you put that together with a winning coach and a winning situation, and this stuff will continue to happen. There's no surprise that as they got better, the guys that they were able to keep were better. Trey Lyles, Sabonis, Malik Monk, because they built a winning culture. Literally, as the team gets better throughout these years, Chris, the free agents that they added got better for the most part. So I think it does. We're always going to have the market size conversations, and it'll never be New York, and it'll never be LA, and I guess it'll never be Miami. But if you have a winning culture, you can still pull people in.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, I think that's definitely a part of the reason why Malik is signing here 100%. I mean, he said he could have left for a worse situation for more money. And, you know, I think that in the past, that would have been the Kings. The Kings would have been that worse situation for more money. And even then, you know, we would really struggle with even getting those guys in here. So honestly, winning is the thing that attracts everybody. Like you said, it doesn't really matter what market you're in. If you're winning, people will go to OKC, people will go to San Antonio, people will come to Sacramento, as long as you're giving them a chance to do what everybody's trying to do, and that's win a championship. And the fact that the Kings are now realistically closer than they were before. I'm not going to say they're close to winning a championship, but they're much, much closer to what they were previously. I mean, I definitely think that this is going to be a trend of things to come for the next coming years. I don't necessarily know if we can say that this is just the way that things are going to be moving forward for the Kings for the rest of time, but definitely, at least for the next 3 to 4 years, we shouldn't be shocked when we see names have interest in Sacramento. And I think that is a really new thing. And you know, even with the trades, like, you know, we are seeing the Kings thrown in to Brandon Ingrams, to the Zach LaVines, to all of the biggest names that are available via the trade market. In the past, to be honest, the Kings would have been excluded, not because they weren't interested, but because the players themselves would have said, hey, that's not a situation that if we're working together from team to player, I don't want you to send me to that situation. And now the Kings aren't even really a thought in that in terms of being excluded. So it's definitely a really big sign that the Kings have kind of gotten over that hump, and they're definitely, hopefully, I mean, you got to keep winning. That's these things can change really quickly, just as quickly as they got this. They got this good reputation. They can lose it equally as fast. So you know, you got to keep winning, and you got to keep the good signings going, and just keep all the positive momentum that this organization has going for it.
To your guys' point, on the list that Chris assembled of the re-signings, how many of those guys are draft picks by the Sacramento Kings who only know Sacramento as an NBA home. It's Thompson, it's DeMarcus, it's
none of the recent ones.
technically Fox. I know he's not on the list officially,
Right.
but like most of these guys are people who played somewhere else,
Right.
ended up in Sacramento,
Right.
and then chose to re-sign with Sacramento.
Yes,
Yeah. Malik Monk, he was in Charlotte, he was in LA. So he's seen the bright lights, and he likes Sacramento's lights just as good or better. Coming up next, we go through Malik Monk's timeline, and we have some really cool sound from his first press conference when he signed with the Kings a couple years ago. Stiles and Watkins, Sactown Sports.
You never